process for the Mountain Valley Pipeline, in addition to understanding the soil types, which they never had any intention of understanding, obviously, is that there's calculations that are done that are they are related to runoff rate and volume after the project is complete, so that they know afterwards the increase in stormwater rate and volume. And there are factors that are used in those calculations based on the condition of the surface of the land. So none of the regulatory agencies made them do those calculations in a reasonable manner. What they did was they assumed, they determined, or they concluded that the runoff rate wouldn't change because the vegetation type wouldn't change, even though they completely, removed forest cover, they completely denuded the soil, excavated it, compacted it. The regulatory agencies permitted them to perform those calculations, saying that the runoff rate wouldn't change. And that's absurd. And everybody, a lay person knows that. It doesn't even take a scientist to know that. Judge Gregory understood that up on the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, that when you remove the trees and move the soil, that the way that rainfall reacts is going to change and stormwater reacts is going to change. So there's the grossest example of the impacts of that have been seen over on Teel Creek in Franklin County. So the pipeline over there crosses the creek, I can't remember, I think it's 7 times.
Oh, really? Wow.
The creek, it's like the main stem of the creek itself, 7 times. That doesn't even include all the little tributaries that are impacted. And the reason that impacts have been so severe over on Four Corners Farm is because of that increase in runoff that's occurred from those multiple crossings. So it's been cleared. The landscape has been cleared 7 times, 125-foot width swaths, and the water just pours off the corridors. And so on the last I knew, on Four Corners Farm, they had lost 10 feet of their pasture land, had collapsed and washed into the creek and gone down into Smith Mountain Lake, if it got that far. The last time I saw it, there was a foot of sediment in Teel Creek, which is also log perch habitat. And as folks know, the log perch are susceptible to the impacts from sedimentation. So the stormwater runoff calculations were very important. The reaction all around is nobody cares. The DEQ's action against Mountain Valley Pipeline, the proposed consent decree, doesn't require the stream bank restoration that's been from the damage that's been caused by this extraordinary runoff. It doesn't require the company to evaluate the impacts of sediment in the streams, no biological assessments from causing the sediment to accumulate in the streams, no restoration of the streams, no removal of the sediment from the streams. It's a crime. It's a crime. It's a victimless crime. The way that complaint reads, it doesn't even allege that there's harm to our water resources when there obviously is. And I call it reads like a victimless crime, which is it's irresponsible for the head of our legal enforcement team in the state of Virginia to file a complaint for all of this activity and portray it as technical error when there is a victim at the bottom of every one of these streams. At every one of these slopes, there is a victim at the bottom, and it's a water resource that is a benefit to the public. And that benefit to the public in those water resources is getting the short end of the deal here. They're not even being evaluated for their impact, and Mountain Valley Pipeline is not being required to clean up the mess that it's made. It's wrong. I expect landslides are probably occurring in lots of places along this route that people can't even see, you can't even get to. So.
And aren't those the conditions for pipeline explosions too?
Oh, yeah, yes. So Frida asked about landslides being related to soil movement, being related to instability in the pipe, and those soil movement causing friction on the pipe and resulting in explosions. That's one of the major causes of explosions in these pipes when they're on slopes. Probably the only cause on slopes.
Just so I'm clear, Tetra Tech, they did the soil analysis for Mountain Valley?
Yeah, a consultant that did it.
Craig et al. Did you work on that with Preserve Craig?
Oh, well, no, but right. So a group of anti-pipeline advocates had filed a motion with FERC requesting that these stormwater analyses be re-performed. I don't understand how the state of Virginia can be allowing them to continue construction using the same construction plans that have proved to be failures over and over and over again. We've asked them repeatedly to suspend the approval of those plans. That's not the same thing as revoking the 401, but they could suspend the approval of the sediment erosion control plans and go back and look at them again, make them at least put in the plans what they're ultimately doing out in the field, so that they're not so when they start, for example, when they start construction again in the spring, they're going to be starting with the same bad plans that were approved 2.5 years ago, without even any of these additional measures that are being thrown in out in the field to respond to the real problems and the real circumstances. So they're going to start with those same bad plans when they start construction again.
But the Tetra Tech analysis, that was used by DEQ to come up with their sediment and erosion control plan, is that right?
No, it's used by the engineers in Mountain Valley Pipeline to create the plans then.
Well, there is a part of it
that the pipeline is supposed to be following, and I know they aren't, but the rules that is DEQ sediment and erosion control plan.
Well, there's sediment erosion control plans, but there's also these stormwater runoff. It is actually a post-construction regulatory requirement. There is a regulatory requirement. I don't know the relationship between the sediment erosion control plans and the stormwater analysis, because the thing is that there's only. Here's the thing, is that they don't belong on these slopes. There isn't a sediment and erosion control mechanism in the world that's going to control this. It just should never have been done. In my view, it's physically impossible to keep the sediment out of the streams, and DEQ knows that. DEQ allowed this, the state of Virginia allowed this to happen knowing what the consequences would be. It's reckless, and it's reckless. It's not even negligent, it's reckless.